Okay, I just want to go over exam two, some of the questions, and maybe hopefully anticipate some of your questions. Because we won't be doing a YouTube live, so they're in no particular order. This is exam two for Intro to Philosophy. Okay, so for Aristotle, Eudaimonia, happiness is an activity in the soul in accordance with reason or virtue. Remember the definition of happiness. Aristotle gives a definition of happiness, which is in one of the lectures, that it is, remember, it's something we do, it's an activity, and it's not in our body, but in our soul, and it's in accord with what is own most to our essential nature, namely rationality, reason, logos. Sometimes he says virtue, or arete, which means simply reason, regulating the passions, okay? Socrates argues that the examined life is not worth living. Socrates... well, I'll leave it at that. I've said this quote before, and I think one of the YouTube lectures is named after this. You know, Socrates was all about philosophical reflection and examination. Okay, so the Delphic oracle, speaking for the god Apollo, prophesies that there is none wiser than Socrates. Socrates takes this literally to mean he is the smartest and most knowledgeable human ever to live, far above the rubes of Athens. A rube is a sort of country bumpkin. Someone not sophisticated. Remember, when Socrates hears that he's the wisest, or rather there's none wiser than him, he means he ends up trying to figure out what this means, because he says, I don't know anything. And then he figures out through Socratic dialectic, through Socratic method, through questioning, that he is only wise because he knows that he doesn't know. Okay. For Plato and Socrates, philosophy and philosophizing are a preparation for death. Since to die is nothing other than to separate the soul from the prison of the body, the very activity philosophy engages in as it ascends to the metaphysical world of the forms. Okay, that one seems pretty straightforward. Okay? Remember, Platonism is the separation of the two worlds and knowledge of the forms, etc., etc. And Socrates says when he drinks the hemlock, we owe an offering to Asclepius because now he's freed from the prison that is the body, and philosophy is a preparation for that act. Okay, so it comes out of his entire life. Socrates argues that in the end, it is better to commit injustice than to suffer it, since justice itself is an objective form and intelligible reality. Remember, there's a quote based on that. I don't think I need to answer that one. That one seems pretty straightforward. For Aristotle, pleasure and use friendships are the highest and most satisfying type of friendship. Now, remember, Aristotle lists three types of friendship: pleasure, use, and good friendship, and one of those is the highest form of friendship. Pretty straightforward, I think. Irony says the opposite of what is meant or intended. This tension between what is said and what is meant does not illuminate the distinction between appearance and reality. Now, remember, what irony says is it says the opposite of what it means. So there's a distinction between appearance and reality. That's why philosophy is often so. What's the word? Philosophers tend to be friends of irony, if you will. For Aristotle, the upshot of his ethics or practical philosophy is essentially to live a life guided by reason, not emotion, in a way that allows for a proper kind of self-love, which thereby enables one to live life in a disciplined manner, desiring and loving the right things. That one seems pretty straightforward. For Aristotle, every choice and action we make has a telos. Remember, a telos is a goal, aim, purpose, a why, a reason. And when we make choices, this question is asking, do choices have an end to them? Eros means being in love, which is synonymous with desire or need for an object that one does not yet have or possess. Remember the distinction between era and philia. Eros and philia. Eros and philia. Remember, eros means something like, I guess the question is testing that. So describe in your own words what Aristotle means by happiness. That seems pretty straightforward. Maybe you can unpack the definition there. I'd say 3 to 5 sentences would suffice. For Aristotle, eros, although ephemeral, that is short-lived, remains the highest of the types of love, since it is rational and thus based upon the good character of each person. Is that eros or is that philia? For Christian readers of Plato, for example, St. Augustine, the forms were reconcilable with the Judeo-Christian God as ideas in the mind of God. I talk about exactly that question and how Augustine, perhaps, or the Christian tradition reconciled Platonism, because remember, Nietzsche says correctly, we think, that Christianity is just Platonism for the people. In your own words, what is the Socratic method? How does it make use of irony? Can you think of an example of Socratic irony aside from Socrates? Remember, the Socratic method is the dialectical process whereby it is revealed to one that they do not know what they thought they knew. And Socratic irony, of course, is when Socrates feigns to be ignorant, right? And in doing so, the other people let their guard down and their vulnerability is exposed. Plato argues that since the forms exist, perception is reality. Okay, there's a direct video right on that question. I don't need to answer that. And then finally, characteristic of the Socratic method, Socrates demonstrates Socratic irony when he feigns to be wiser than interlocutors, evidencing to them that they do not know what they thought they knew, that is, that they are ignorant. I sort of just answered that question in the other one. Okay, so I went through all the questions there. That was about 5 minutes. Hopefully that helps. If not, email me or find me on chat.